I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Friday, August 5th, 2022. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this program. And we want you to stay with us and help us grow the conversation. Important, critical conversations in our community, between us, among us, sharing our thoughts, our feelings, our aspirations with each other and with the world. We call Friday the Healing Circle, and we do that because we usually are in partnership with our colleagues at the African American Child Wellness Institute, our co-host there, and our partner there, Dr. Bravada Garrett-Akinsanya. Today, however, Dr. Akinsanya and her crew are participating in fact, being honored by and delivering a keynote to the annual meeting of the American Psychologists Association. They're meeting here in Twin Cities, and Dr. B, Go Dr. B, is the keynote speaker, probably right now, delivering her presentation. What I do know is that she's going to knock their socks off. She's going to deliver knowledge, awareness, and engagement. I don't use these terms. I apply the 3 I's to her to inform, to instruct, and to inspire. She's going to inform them about what's happening from our point of view, our way of knowing, the Africana way of knowing. She's going to give them specific instructions on how the profession itself can do better, be inclusive, and to be responsive to our sense of our humanity and our dignity and our aspirations. And she'll also inspire them. There won't be a dry eye. So kudos to Dr. B. We thank her for all she has done and for the partnership in creating the Healing Circle on the Friday edition of the Conversation with Al McFarlane. And so what we're going to do today is present a show that is a presentation that I chaired yesterday morning. I chair the monthly meeting of the Hawthorne Huddle. Hawthorne Huddle is led by one of my regular colleagues, a colleague on this show on Monday regularly. That colleague is Diana Hawkins. We call our Monday program, Monday edition of the Conversation with Al McFarlane, Governance from the Neighborhood Level. And two things here. Number one, make sure you bookmark your time to tune in Monday coming up, because this Monday, the 8th, the Governance at the Neighborhood Level program is going to feature a presentation by Turning Point. Turning Point is an African-American agency that provides culturally specific substance use disorder treatment. It also provides housing support and support services and training to adults. Wraparound services to people that are impacted by chemical abuse, substance abuse. And I have to say that Turning Point is a national leader, international leader in creating the language and the strategies to understand the value, the reality, first of all, and the value, the essential and asset nature of culture in the process of healing. So Dr. Peter Hayden, my friend and colleague, has been a pioneer in that arena, not only here, but around the country and around the world. His team will be presenting Monday when they talk about their work coming up on opioid addiction, and they want to make sure that we get that science. Well, the program we're hearing today, that's yesterday's monthly meeting of the Hawthorne Huddle, is really consistent with our mission on our Friday Healing Circle. And I'll mention 2 things specifically that make it so. One is we always have a report from epidemiologists from the city of Minneapolis that gives us an update on the spread, the impact, the trends around COVID-19. And in this program, you'll see a conversation on both COVID-19, its presence, and our responses in this community, in North Minneapolis in particular, but the city of Minneapolis in general. And you'll also hear that go into a discussion about monkeypox. What's the point? People suffer because of lack of knowledge, lack of information. We are demonstrating the efficacy of creating pathways to share information between us, among us, at the neighborhood level. And we believe that that commitment, that will to communicate, to share, to engage each other with critical, rational conversation and addressing policy and processes benefits all of us individually, as residents, as families, but benefits the community. This is what is governance at the neighborhood level. The second part of the program, the main feature of today's or yesterday's Hawthorne Huddle, which we're presenting right now, is an important discussion on the question of homelessness among youth. And in particular, we're hearing a presentation from an organization that's called what is it called? Let me get my notes here. Avenues for Youth, that's the right name. So we talked to the executive director and a team leader of Avenues for Youth, and they talk about homelessness in general, but homelessness in particular in our community in North Minneapolis. It's a big issue. It's a big issue. It's growing. And no matter where you are in the country, probably in the world, there's a question of how we should be responding to people that are unhoused and what challenges they are suffering, mental, physical, spiritual challenges, and that we have to be responsive to and assume responsibility for creating solutions. Well, that's kind of the big picture. One last thing I want to say before we start the show or roll the tape. On last Tuesday's program, we announced or invited you to win a ticket to the play at the Guthrie, Lynn Nottage's play at the Guthrie, which opened on, I think, Wednesday night before last. And I want to congratulate and announce that Mary Lynch of Minneapolis was the winner of a pair of tickets to the Guthrie Theater, Lynn Nottage's play. And you know what? I should pull my notes up because I'm right now blanking on the name of the play, and I apologize for that. Boss, you can help me if you can in the notes here. Sweat. There we go. I'm sweating now. So the name of the play is Sweat. Sweat is important because it's won a Pulitzer Prize for Lynn Nottage, and Sweat, for that Pulitzer Prize win, she becomes the only woman in the history of the Pulitzer Prize to win 2 Pulitzers for her work, Sweat, and an earlier production, I think it was called Floyd's. I could be wrong there. I think that's what it was. But we interviewed one of the stars of Sweat on Tuesday. Great program, good information, good energy. And as a part of that, the Guthrie provided us a couple of tickets to give away. And again, thanks to Mary Lynch of Minneapolis for responding right away with an email saying she was interested. And so we thanked her for her being a listener or viewer. And we want you to know that she won. We're going to be doing more. We have relationships with most of the entertainment venues in Twin Cities, and we'll be asking them to use our platforms to promote their offerings, but also provide access, tickets, invitations to you. And we'll do giveaways. We also have an ongoing relationship with the Minnesota Twins, and in the weeks ahead, we'll be announcing giveaways to all of the home games for the balance of the season. So stay tuned. Tell your friends. If you got suggestions or ideas of things that you want us to do that suit and support your lifestyle and your interests, we're interested in knowing that. My email address is right there on the screen, Al at Inside News. Talk to me. Let me know what's on your mind. I'm interested. And I thank you for being you. Well, listen, with that, I'm going to see you tomorrow, but we're going to start in a couple of seconds here, the Hawthorne Huddle meeting that happened yesterday. We're presenting it today as part of the Healing Circle. We'll see you next time.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the August Hawthorne Huddle. We're glad to be back. Before I turn it over to my good friend, Mr. Al, I just want to make a couple announcements. I'm going to ask Miss Ann to put that photo up. So the reason that you're seeing this photo is because I just want you guys to know that 26 years ago, these 8 people came together to make the Huddle what it is today. So I just want to say thank you to my co-workers here who helped me along the way with this, for something that started as a block club in someone's living room, and look what it has robust into now. So we all thank you all very much. And also, I would like to say, as one of our General Mills leaders, I don't know how many of you know Miss Ellen Goldberg-Luger, but something very, very strong and powerful happened for her. She was appointed by President Biden's administration to go overseas for the USDA Foreign Service to work on the Union Nation on global food security. That is a big plus, and I just want you to know, we are so proud of her, and I'm glad to call Ellen my friend. With that being said, I am going to turn it over to my good friend, Mr. Al McFarlane, to start the meeting. Thank you very much.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the August meeting of the Hawthorne Huddle. We've got a great program, a great agenda. First of all, thanks to all of you. Congratulations to Ellen. Congratulations to all of the members of our community, particularly to Diana and the team that had the vision and did the work to bring us forward as a community, as a model of civic engagement. And I've been doing some series of programs Mondays called on the Conversations series, and I call it governance from the neighborhood level. And I take that from the idea that that's what we do. We talk about how we can relate to each other, do with each other, collaborate, share thoughts, ideas, and create policy at the neighborhood level. I think this meeting is symbolic of that opportunity and of our will to create and grow community. Well, with that, let's move into the agenda. And first, we want to have our regular COVID update. Louisa is on vacation, I think, and we are blessed to have Mageen Keynes, who's with the health department, to make the COVID update. Mageen, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me today. Okay, so COVID in Minneapolis has largely plateaued, as it has for most of the state. We're a little bit higher than the rest of the state. Unfortunately, when I say plateaued, what I mean is we're pretty close to where we were in fall 2021. We aren't experiencing that dip that we got in summer 2021. So we're poised for a fall surge would be my interpretation of that data. We're also seeing that going into this fall, we're also going to look at where are our vaccine coverage coming from, how are we doing there? And Hawthorne itself is not as stricken as some of the other parts of the city in terms of overall COVID counts. And that really hasn't changed since the last time that Louisa talked with you. Across the state of Minnesota, about 71% of people have one dose. In Minneapolis, we're doing better, closer to 80%. We're at 79%. And only 67% of people have a complete series. In Minneapolis, we're at 60 or 73%. So what I'm saying is Minneapolis is doing better overall on vaccines than Minnesota. Hawthorne's zip code, though, 55411, is still a little bit behind the city as a whole, with 61% of people have had one dose, 54% are fully vaccinated. But we are seeing every week just a few more people trickling in ahead of a fall surge. It'd be nice to have as much protection as we can for the folks in the community. Are there any questions or anything I can help out with? It's unfortunately been stable at a fairly high rate these last few weeks. So we're sort of watching school and those other big convenings where people start getting back close to each other physically and less outdoor recreation.
What we're hearing is about the higher transmissibility of the most current variant. Can you talk about that and
Absolutely.
what kinds of protocol reminders we need to be as safe for ourselves and for people that we come in contact with going forward?
Absolutely. The type of transmissibility improvement increase that the current strain has is what I tell my superintendent and school board folks who I work with. It's sticky, which means that if you come in contact with it, it's just more likely to stick to you, which means that still every contact isn't a guaranteed case of COVID, but sometimes where you could kind of get away with something and you said, oh, turns out later I found out that person had COVID, whew, near miss. We're going to have fewer and fewer near misses because this particular strain of the bug sticks better. So that being the case, we don't have to, nobody's entertaining the idea of really pulling back from life as we know it, any kind of lockdown or shutdown or anything like that. And we're currently, as a community, in a yellow state right now for the CDC, which doesn't say you must wear masks indoors. I started wearing masks indoors when I do my grocery shopping, though, or things like that, where I think I'm going to be sitting next to a bunch of other people looking at produce. I have chosen to eat outside on a patio or with friends rather than necessarily be inside unless it's, kind of an off hour. I've just been feeling myself get a little more cautious about indoor gatherings. I went and saw a play at the high school the other day, though, so I still enjoyed that, and that was fine. So it's kind of going to be those risk thinking of, could I be outside? Could I be, because outside is still appearing to be our safest bet overall. Should I wear a mask if there's a lot of people there? If I'm wrong and I get sick, will that really ruin something for me? Like, am I in a play? Am I going to need an understudy? Do I want to see my grandma? Am I grandma? All of those things where if it's going to be a bigger problem if you get sick, I would definitely think about that. The vaccines have been really effective in reducing the severity of disease. And you can see on how people are experiencing this current version. The people without the vaccines are hurting. The people with the vaccines are like, that wasn't fun, but it was a couple of days of not fun and then they're back.
Right. So are we back to the place of wearing gloves? I keep masking. I've done that from the beginning. I plan to keep doing that in public, but I stopped wearing gloves. But I used to wear gloves at Costco or pumping gas. Should I move back in that direction again?
It would not. No. The gloves represent sort of a different type of pathogen than COVID is. So now that we know more about COVID, it doesn't tend to stick to surfaces. One of our great advantages here is it's actually pretty fragile once it gets out and about. It disperses with wind. It doesn't like basic household cleaners. We don't have to create, a weird concoction. You can just use regular whatever you use to kind of wipe surfaces. And one of the best parts about it is it doesn't stick to our hands. So in terms of COVID, the gloves can go. We don't have to do anything like that. It's really focusing on breathing.
So Diana?
I got a question. So where does the monkeypox fit in all of this?
Oh, I'm super glad you asked. I'm also serving as the epidemiologist on the city's monkeypox. So I have those answers. Just like the primary risk factor for COVID is breathing, monkeypox is a rash. And so people with skin get rashes. It is much, much, much less transmissible though. So it does not travel through the air at all. It travels through spit droplets just a little bit. Mostly it's skin to skin contact, which is why we're hearing about folks having sex and coming away with monkeypox, or small children, because how many kids do you know who get rashes? They're just rashy little things for a couple years there. And so that's where you're getting it, is just basic rash, like chickenpox, rash transmission. It's painful when you get it. I hope folks don't get it. And we have such a limited amount of vaccine. Right now, the folks who are, so Minneapolis and Minnesota opened the national stockpile for vaccine. And what that means is that if folks meet some very narrow conditions, such as they have definitely had an exposure, they're living with HIV, things like that, that are really going to make that disease much more consequential for them, those folks work with the clinic for a vaccine. Other folks we're going to try to make comfortable until we get something more widespread. It does not transmit at all like COVID did, though. So this one's not going to be like I'll be excited at the office for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to work hard to keep everybody very safe. The vast majority of people are not going to need to have a massive shift in who and how they are. The people who are asking to think things through are people who actively have rashes. And I'll be honest, if you actively have a rash, I'm probably going to ask you to like maybe do the elbow bump anyway. So.
Someone else has a hand up. Yeah, Ann, go ahead.
Hi, McGean.
I am.
First of all, McGean's been a great partner at the health department for the youth coordinating board. Very, very helpful in helping us figure out what census tract data means and a variety of other things. So I really appreciate your work with us. But the second question I have is, how are we doing with vaccines for children? Given that school's coming up, are we in pretty good shape or not? Or how could this group help if we need to get the word out more?
Oh, thanks, Anne. That's a big one, because when I used to talk to parents of those young kids, they'd feel very left behind as the rest of us got back to, eating dinner on the lawn with our friends or doing what have you. So I would say we're lagging as a whole on our COVID vaccines for our very small people and for our kids. The high schoolers have had a bigger uptick. Probably because they have other things to do and other things they want to do. So I think having that conversation of, hey, did you get your kiddo vaccinated? Do you know where to get them vaccinated? Or, we're happy to put something together if there's opportunities to talk about that. Vaccine injury is very low with this. It's like the most massive safety experiment in history. The grandparents tested the safety for the middle age, who tested the safety for the younger, and everybody before has tested the safety. So they've never quite had a rollout like that, where there've been so many people who have tested it ahead of the small kids. So it's really kind of neat that way, in terms of each one of us getting vaccinated has helped the group that followed us to make sure they're safe. So we have things like that we can talk about, but we definitely want to get those little ones vaccinated, because the risks of long COVID are just no fun. And I don't want kids to have to deal with that. Some of those things are quite remarkable when quite noticeable. They're not just sick for a while, they're weak, or kids have a profound change in how their executive functioning works, things like that we'd want to avoid if we can. I think I saw a question about asking about monkeypox vaccine before school starts. I wouldn't worry about monkeypox vaccine right now. What we're working with in schools is the kind of the same thing we always work with is, if you have any kind of a sport where people have skin, like wrestling, for example, is a usual one. Love our wrestlers, but clean those mats. Love our wrestlers, but check in. And if anyone has a rash, don't participate that day. That's kind of a usual message that we send out to the athletic trainers. And we're not seeing the rash profoundly in young kids, only if that's already in the household. And recognizing that, of course, we have parents and community members, teachers, whomever, who also could get monkeypox. What we're going with right now is a 2 to 4 week stay home. if you should be infected. And it's really the reason there's such a big gap there is it's dependent on how the disease progresses. And so it's one of those awful conversations you have to have of like, we just said it's not COVID, and also we need you to stay home and keep that rash to yourself. It's really hard to transmit to the general public. So if a person gets it, it'll be high impact. But if it's like, if someone you know gets it, it's hard to get it from them, if that makes sense, unless you give them it's one of those like, please don't hug right now. And it is transmitted by things like towels or sheets, which is typically how the kids get it. They use a towel that somebody else used. And so those are really specific protocols for monkeypox though. And people typically notice when they have it, because it doesn't feel good. It's a painful rash.
How many cases so far in Minneapolis or in the metro area, do you know?
Minneapolis, we have about 25.
25, okay.
And no pediatric cases, but every time one hits the news, somebody has strange opinion, like that child must have been molested. And I'm like, no, that child is a child and childs get rashes. That's what they do.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions, comments? Well,
I think I see a hand, Miss Felder, is that?
Yeah, go ahead, Carrie Jo.
Yeah, I was just wondering, well, since they do have a vaccine that prevents it, I mean, shouldn't we go and get that?
We don't have enough of it right now. It's really more aimed towards smallpox, actually. And so they're trying to develop one faster. I would suspect Minneapolis, Minnesota right now has a large percentage. We're not in the top 10 states that are impacted right now, probably because we're not like California and Texas. Chicago may take its place here shortly. I mean, Illinois, but pretty much that's being driven by having a large city. We're trying to figure out how to have more vaccines, which I think is not going to be as hard as COVID because we already have vaccines for chickenpox and smallpox. And like, we know how to do a pox vaccine. What breaks my heart is that monkeypox isn't new. It's been around forever, and we should have been working on a vaccine to relieve the people who have already been dealing with it. So that part breaks my heart. For our near future, we don't have access to a whole lot right now. We really only have access for if you definitely had an exposure and you definitely have a very compromised immune system. So that's what they're giving us right now. I couldn't get it. Healthcare workers can't get it. You know, we can't get the vaccine. We could get the disease, but unless we have a really strong predisposing condition that would compromise our immune systems, it's really not being handed out very much. It's being used very carefully to try to manage the folks who are at most risk of dying or being severely ill. The rest of us are gonna have to wait. It's usually
how lethal is it?
You know, that one's one that I hesitate to answer because the way that we have experienced it in the past, I think the mild cases may not have risen to reporting levels in all areas. So what we heard about were the horrific ones, or the painful ones, or like the really bad ones. In every disease, very few diseases have 100% of people have the most dramatic presentation of it. There's usually a spread, right? Many people are somewhere in the middle. I think I might say less than 10% of cases are lethal, like by a long march. I just don't know exactly where I'd pick that number up, but I would go more towards smaller than larger. And that's typically because there's an underlying condition, like someone's living with HIV or has another severely actively, like receiving chemotherapy or radiation. And so we want to be very careful of those folks for everything, but those are the folks who are really targeting for the vaccine track. And that's such an unsatisfactory answer of we're learning, we don't know everything, and we do know how many counts of vaccine we have, and we definitely don't have enough. But we're making more.
Thank
Right,
you.
and I mean, but that's another one that could lead to a myriad of different kind of conditions depending on the person.
We're seeing, so COVID attacks the nervous system in a very different way. And so fortunately, with the pox-based infections, which monkeypox is one of the orthopoxes, it's much rarer. Like the reason we do vaccinate against like chickenpox, and we didn't when I was a kid, is that people can die from it and people can have nerve damage. It's true. It's not nearly as high the percentage of people who live with long COVID or have early on when people appeared to wake up with dementia or children appeared to wake up with ADD, like that kind of like nervous system damage is really different between monkeypox and COVID. So yeah, it's nothing I'd want to have. I want people not to have it. And I would say whatever the rash is on your body, want to keep that to yourself. We do have a lot of testing improvements though, which I think will help folks to at least be aware of what their status is. And then remember, you know, it does, unlike COVID, it's more like when you get diarrhea in a childcare center, it's more likely to be part of towels and gloves and sheets and those kind of day-to-day things. Monkeypox is much more like that for those of us who I remember having chickenpox.
Let me move the agenda. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, again, and thank you for all the questions and answers that but the topic is so important, and you've got a captivated audience here, so that tells you how intense our interest is in being healthy, you know, and in helping keep our communities and our families safe. So thank you so much. Next week, if we have a representative of the 4th Precinct, we'd like to do our safety report. Is there someone here from 4th Precinct? Is anyone here?
Al, I don't think so.
Okay, so we will not have that. We'll just keep moving. Next on the agenda is the report from our partner, the Human organization, Brother Clarence Jones. Clarence, how you doing, man? Unmute if you would.
I keep forgetting to do that. Hello, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I just want to thank Hawthorne for the opportunity to partner with them on some specific events as we talk about having a healthier community. And I want to just share with you some of the things that we have done the last month and then some of the things that are coming up. For last month, we were involved with the YMCA Health Fair. We also completed a series of 3 substance abuse training with UROC. And we will have at least 6 more in the community where we are training people about overdoses, about opioids and things like that. So those are things that we are specifically doing that identifies Hawthorne as a partner on it. We also, this month, we just did the National Night Out over across the street. We were over at PV Park where we were working with that community. We will be at the Seeds to Harvest event where we'll be encouraging young people as they're doing their marathon or whatever they're going to be doing. I won't be moving, but they'll be moving. We also have the Fathers Festival that's coming up. And then this coming Saturday, we are the sponsor for the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder boat ride. So we will be there and we will be talking about Hawthorne. We'll be talking about the work that's going on in Hawthorne and introducing people to the work that's happening here. We will be at Tito Wilson's. We're one of the sponsors at Tito Wilson's event on the 20th. And then we just got a grant to do before, during, and after the bullet. So we were talking about gun violence. And so Hawthorne is doing a lot of stuff, and we are very appreciative of being a part of that. And we just want you to know that we are definitely working and look forward to doing more to help our communities become healthier. So that's my report. And if there are any questions for me. And
questions or comments? Thank you, Clarence.
Hey, Clarence, I thought I remember talking to you a while back that there was going to be maybe in the works, and I don't know if it's still taking place, of doing some type of survey around teens or young people. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, we were talking about this whole idea around vaccine hesitancy. We hear a lot from adults, but we don't hear a lot from the young people. And we're still trying to figure out how do we hear from them And how do we get that information back to the community? Because we have to make some decisions. I mean, you know, the report that talked about the COVID